bit if we get some blowouts.
And literally an hour before, Braxton had just said, and we talked about it, how today I'm going to go out here. I'm feeling good. I'm 100% clear. I'm going to go out today and practice. 3 hours later, we get off the air. I was getting ready to watch the Browns game. Here comes the thing. And that's when I texted you because I did some running around, so I wasn't near any outlets. I get to the TV. I see Braxton Miller may be out for a significant amount of time. I texted you. I said, what happened? And then I, put it all together. I'm like, man, just hours after saying I'm 100% and it's time to go to practice and let's go to work, and then boom. And that's the scary thing, is that it was non-contact. It happened during a routine throwing drill, and that leads to wonder what exactly it is that can be repaired, and will it hold up after a second one?
Yeah, and with the obvious disclaimer that I haven't seen the MRIs and I'm not an orthopedic surgeon and blah, blah, blah. Well, what I had been hearing was that the initial labrum tear in the first place may have been the result of a dislocation that happened now. Presumably the original injury happened in the Orange Bowl last year when he landed awkwardly on the shoulder. You could see him working the shoulder around. There may have been a partial dislocation, or sometimes they pop in and pop out. In any event, there's some looseness, call it instability, whatever, in the joint itself that can lead to labrum tears. And the labrum can be fixed, and then if you still got that instability in the joint, that it can lead to a second labrum tear, and presumably that's what happened.
And you know what they can do?
That's from a lot of speculation by inside Buckeye people over the last couple of days. But yeah, and again, it leads to my uncertainty about proclaiming him the 2015 starting quarterback, because who the heck knows? Guy may never throw another football again.
Yeah, and speaking from personal experience with that type of injury, I've had some rotator cuff and some labrum injuries and some stuff like that. I know one of the options that I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, because whenever the thing pops out, if you guys are not familiar, which most people aren't, with sports injuries, it stretches, like Dan said, it stretches the socket, it stretches the muscles and ligaments to where when it heals, there's that play in it where that's why they say when a guy pops a shoulder out, he's likely to have it happen over and over again. So a lot of times what they'll do, and I'm thinking that they didn't do this previously, that this may be a part of what happens next, is there's like a type of a rubber band. They can actually put some material and a rubber band in there that almost prevents that play and prevents the shoulder from re-popping out. But that's a much more extensive than just repairing a tear in the labrum and in the shoulder there. But that I would expect that to be part of it, because clearly that played into the second injury as well there.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll find out more in the days ahead. But at this point, just like in the pros, it's it's next man up, and Urban Meyer's been recruiting his butt off for the last 3 years, and he's got some kids. JT Barrett, I think, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of JT Barrett's junior year highlights, but they were all over the internet yesterday. The YouTube video, 2012. Kid's a nice looking player, and they had said just within the last few days that the offense moves better when he's in there. That's why he was named the backup, and that's why he's now the default starter for this team. I think you're going to see, more of certainly less a runner. Now, J.T. Barrett's a good runner. He's probably a more durable runner because he's a little bit thicker through the middle than Braxton is. And he's a very capable runner, not nearly the speed or the elusiveness that Braxton brings, but smart, savvy, heads up, and you'll see some read option with him. He ran the offense. One of the reasons Meyer recruited him, he ran the same offense virtually in high school that Meyer runs here with read option. Yeah. And he's very accustomed to running it, very comfortable running it, and the decision-making that goes with that. So, and he also ran the scout team really all last year, and we would hear on a weekly basis. We never got to see the scout team really. But that he was impressive doing that job for the team last year as a freshman redshirting. And so he should be ready to go. And we'll see. But I think my rule of thumb always, Jerry, has been if you have a first-year starting quarterback, it translates to one Big Ten loss, sometimes two. Just that factor alone, no matter what else you're doing. You're starting a first-year starter at QB. You're going to lose the conference game because it's just that hard to win them all. There are obviously exceptions to that rule, Craig Krenzel, for example. But, you can almost write it down, and whether it's Christian Hackenberg, no matter how highly touted you are, how good you are, that you're going to drop some games based on inexperience. Now, if any team is prepared at the skill positions to handle a burden like that, that would be this year's Buckeyes. We've talked a long time about all the talent that's there, and we'll see it. But I still think that rule holds true, and you're certainly not going to be favored, I wouldn't think, going into East Lansing in November, and you're going to have a tough time being favored even going to Happy Valley for a night game, whiteout game in October, I believe it is. So, you're going to be up against it this year with that first-year starter, no matter how talented the rest of the personnel is.
For sure. I mean, that comes with the territory of that, and I tend to agree with you. Just alone on having the first-year guy out there, you can bank on one or two there in the negative column. Now, I guess a silver lining in this, is kind of similar to the opposite of the thing with the Browns and splitting and all of that, is with Braxton, not being able to practice and being held out during the spring and during the preparation up until now, is the majority of the snaps, all of the snaps, were taken by the other quarterbacks, which is Barrett and which is Jones. And so at least you've got a little bit more work than you would have normally had with your backup guys. And so that at least is a good thing for them from that aspect.
Sure, yeah, it's just an unexpected, coincidental side benefit to the way that you were kind of trying to bring Braxton along slowly. Those guys have gotten a lot of snaps, and Barrett's now been here for 2 springs, and then Cardale is a third-year sophomore, so he's been around too. So they've been around the program. It's not like you're pushing a true freshman in there in a starting job or something like that. So yeah, that's something that just coincidentally worked out in their favor, obviously unexpectedly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny you brought up those clips. You said, they were going around. That's how I saw them yesterday too. It was all over the place. Hey, here's some JT Barrett clips, check the guy out. And I was checking him out too there. So interesting. It's funny too. At least he is mobile and not a running quarterback, but able, like you said, he ran a bit in high school. 1,500 yards his junior year. I think he had about half of that his senior year, despite a knee injury. But that may be important because we've talked about the offensive line kind of being a bit unsettled here heading into the season here and being maybe one of the offensive question marks. So not like you want to combine that with also having to deal with the quarterback issue as well. So, but his ability to move around, move the pocket, things like that should also play into, like you said, a lot of the same skill sets. It's not like, hey, like with the Browns, if one goes down and the other comes in, you've got to change everything because they're running different offenses and all of that. Whereas this way, at least there's some continuity.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, he ran this system in high school, and he is a dual-threat quarterback. It's not like he's coming in there
he can run.
as a pro-style drop-back guy. He's been a dual-threat quarterback his whole career. That's what he's cut out to do. I think, as I said Monday, he probably resembles Troy Smith a little bit more than he does Braxton. Troy wasn't quite as fast, a little bit thicker, but still a good runner. And JT Barrett, if you watch his highlight reels, he is a good runner. He doesn't have that ability to have defenders leaving their jockstraps laying all over the field like Braxton Miller does with one lateral move. But he's capable, and he's capable of making people miss and picking up yardage in the read option game. And again, it gets down to how much is Urban and Tom Herman going to pull that trigger on the read option given the injury situation and wanting to obviously preserve JT Barrett and make sure his knee stays healthy and make sure he stays up on 2 feet, just as they were concerned with limiting Miller's designed run plays during the regular season.
I was going to bring that up, too, because obviously with the previous knee surgery, you do worry about injury to him and your depth, because then you're down. Speaking of, by the way, what if it would get to a situation where you're down to Jones there and he's got to step in there? I mean, talk to me a bit about his development in the spring and coming into this. Obviously, something happened that and like you said, coaches said he was just moving the offense a little bit better than Jones was. But with the switch there, talk to me a bit about Cardale Jones as he sits now, if he needs to come in and play.
Well, he's a bigger kid. He's more like 6'4", 250. He is a runner, but more of a power runner at quarterback. I don't want to make comparisons to Tim Tebow, but the size difference isn't all that different. He has, not even close to the elusiveness of either Barrett or Miller. But he's got a much bigger arm than Barrett. He's a much stronger arm, very strong arm, But when he has been used in games to this point, whether it's spring games or mop-up duty for Braxton, it's usually been in games when they're up 63-14, and Irvin isn't passing the ball. So what we haven't seen yet from Cardale Jones is much passing, other than some spring game time. So we don't exactly know whether the accuracy is there. We know that Barrett can throw an accurate ball, but he doesn't have the arm strength of Jones. Sample size for Cardale Jones passing the ball really is very small, and it's hard to make any judgments on that other than the strength of the arm. We haven't been able to judge really, game day accuracy from him, and maybe that's part of the reason that the call was made the way it was, and also maybe because Barrett's game more closely resembles Braxton's game. You have to change less as far as what you're doing with your offense if you put him in there. Although, they made the decision to go with Barrett as the backup before Miller's injury, so
yes.
That wasn't actually a factor in that decision. But as it turns out, you can basically do exactly the same things with Barrett as you did with Miller, where you might have to alter things a little bit more with Cardale Jones in there.
Well, even at the backup, I think that was a part of their thought process, though, because if a guy's got to step in, he can step in and miss less of a beat than if you've got, to make some tweaks and some changes. But were you surprised prior to Braxton? We talked a little bit about it on Monday about the flip-flop in the depth chart. Were you surprised by that?
I wasn't so much, because I had sort of been a J.T. Barrett fan ever since he came in, and listening really to all of, that video I watched a year and a half ago of J.T. Barrett. I thought, wow, the kid really has it. And hearing at the time that he was recruited in part, highly rated, of course, I think the 4th-rated dual-threat QB in the country, but that he was running a very similar offense in high school, and the coaches talking with Urban Meyer about that, and you could just see that it was a natural fit from a scheme standpoint. And then, of course, last year, hearing all about how good he looked running the scout team. So I had heard all these good reports about him, and so, no, I don't think I was surprised when that decision was made. And again, not that I've really ever had doubts about Cardale Jones' ability to get the job done, but he's a different look back there, and like I said, the sample size is not enough to really form an opinion, having not seen him in games throwing the ball.
Charles, with a good question in the chat room, just along the same lines of what we're talking about. Traditionally, when the Buckeyes get big leads in the early games, you'll see the depth chart kind of empty down, get a lot of guys some opportunities. If OSU theoretically say they jump up on top of Navy and they've got a blowout going on, does this change that thought process? Do you think that they continue to keep that first string getting more reps together simply because of the changes here with Braxton and everything kind of putting you on the fly like this?
I think they may do that in the first game. If one hopes that there is a big lead over Navy in the middle of the contest. But I think that would make some sense. Maybe just for the purpose of game reps, that you're not going to be swapping out your quarterbacks, and you might want Barrett to play the whole game just for that reason alone. You may see some, I think what they do what most pro teams do too, is when they change the quarterback, they change the line, and they're substituting really an entire unit, not only because that's the unit that plays together in practice, but they just want some continuity of that. And if you want to get your subs in the game, you want to get all your subs in the game. So I expect to see a lot of depth this year. There's going to be certainly on the defensive side of the ball. I think you're going to see more of a rotation. Certainly, the defensive line, they're going to use more players and try to keep players fresh. It's a Larry Johnson philosophy on the defensive line, or just rotate more guys in. And I think you'll see that on the offensive line too, because even Warner has admitted going into the season